But there's a kill that happens about halfway through the movie that I think is going to top the hacksaw scene, just in the meanness of it.
Ooh.
It is a mean kill. There is nothing funny about this kill. It's just brutal.
For everything scary, I'm GMHaunts, and welcome to the second episode in the second season of Channel 1031, the show where I interview fellow haunters and people who work in the Halloween industry. I am beyond excited to film this episode. This is one that I've had my eye on for a while, and I'm just shocked that I'm getting to do it today. It's actually happening. I'm a huge fan of this guest myself, and again, I'm just shocked that we're actually getting to do this, and I'm so excited to be bringing this to Channel 1031. So, ladies and gentlemen, my guest for Channel 1031 today played the Joker in the YouTube series Nightwing Escalation. He played Grandpa in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the musical, and in his most gruesome role, he plays Art the Clown in the hugely popular Terrifier and the upcoming Terrifier 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome my guest, David Howard Thornton.
Hey, how you doing, man? This is perfect. We're talking about Terrifier 2 on your second episode of your second season.
I know. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. So I have a lot of questions, some about Terrifier, some about David's past, and I'm just super excited to get into it. So let's get into the questions. All right, so obviously we're going to get to some Terrifier questions, but first I wanted to get to know a little bit about David's past. So I'm going to start it off with, obviously in other interviews, you've talked about the fact that alongside acting, you're also a pretty big horror movie and Halloween fan. I can't help but think that your love of horror movies helped you get into roles like Art the Clown, who we'll get to later. When did your love of horror and Halloween start? What made you enjoy the genre so much, and what films kind of jump-started your passion?
Yeah, I was a little bit late to it, though. I mean, I grew up in the South, and my mom was, very afraid of horror films. So she wouldn't allow them in our house. Except my dad would watch them late at night when everybody had gone to bed. And so, so I was a little late. I mean, it was like maybe I think it was like my senior year of high school when Scream 2 came out.
Yeah.
And I was doing a show at the time, and my castmates all wanted to go see it. And there was a girl in the cast I had a crush on. And I'm like, God, I can't chicken out in front of this girl because she asked me to come. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll go. And I had a blast. I loved the movie, and I was like, this is fun. I don't know why my mom's so scared of these movies. I've always liked jumping out at people and scaring them and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun being scared myself. But that's what I loved about it. It's just like these movies, you can't take them too seriously, especially slashers. It's all in fun and games. So it's like the kills in those things, they aren't as scary to me as they're more fun and interesting to watch, and that's what I liked about it. And so after that, that's when my next year when I went to college, my roommate and I, who also came from like a very conservative Christian family, so they didn't watch horror movies either. And so we would go every weekend and just rent stacks of tapes from the local movie gallery and just watch all the old horror films from like the 70s and 80s and some of the 90s and just, try to catch up with everybody.
Yeah.
That was just a lot of fun. And I was like, God, this is great. I love it. I just never imagined back then that I would actually be doing them myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I try to ask a lot of my guests the same question because you find like this is horror and Halloween, and it's just there's so many people involved in this kind of community, and everyone has such a different kind of story into how they got into it. You're the first actor that I've gotten, so it's interesting to hear another side to it of how people get into it, because you really do hear some really interesting stories. And this next question, it very much ties into it, and obviously, so the question is like, you've had a pretty interesting acting career up to this point. Your first IMDb credit is for voicing some video game characters back in 2010. You've done things like the role of Grandpa in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the musical, and you played the Joker in the YouTube series Nightwing Escalation. How did you get into acting? So obviously we just discussed kind of how you got into horror. When did you learn that acting was something that you liked to do, and kind of where can we trace your whole career back to?
Church theater, oddly enough.
Oh, okay.
That's when you consider what I do now. I love that. I'm like, wow, I've really gone a full 180.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like my parents were very involved with the church theater at the church I grew up in, and my mom directed a lot of the shows. My dad would act in some of them. And stuff like that. So that's how I kind of got my teeth started. Because got my teeth started. Oh no. But that's how I cut my teeth on it and got started. There we go. English hard. But but that's what I did. I was doing church plays, and then when I was in middle school, I was bullied a lot, and my mom wanted to get me to break out of my shell because I was very quiet in school. Because I went to a new school, no one knew me, and and she's like, "Well, your classmates have never seen your real side. Why don't you show them that?" And I'm like, "Well, they never let me to." It's like, "Well, there's an opportunity this Christmas. Your choral program's doing Mickey's Christmas Carol, so why don't you audition for Mickey Mouse at that?" Who is Bob Cratchit? He's like, "You do a great Mickey Mouse impersonation. Why don't you try out?" I'm like, "Okay, sure, I'll do that. That sounds like that would be fun." And I did, and I got the part, and we're doing the show. And everything just starts to go wrong on stage. Like probably the best part was like when we're doing the Cratchit family Christmas dinner scene, and the table that we had the little bitty goose on broke and flung the goose over the audience.
Oh wow!
And I'm like, "Oh boy, I think we have fabulous food tonight, folks." And the audience just started laughing. I didn't miss a beat. And I just started goofing around and making jokes and everything like that until everything got back on track. And that was like the first time at that school that people were laughing with me instead of at me, and I love that feeling. I love that the power I had. Sorry, got a cat going behind me, but she does whatever she wants to. But yeah, that's what really got me into it. It's like that for the first time at that school, I had the control. I had people with me instead of against me, and I love that feeling. I love bringing laughter and joy to people like that. And I was like, I want to do more of this. So I started getting involved in local community theater. I did that for many, many years. And now I was trying to be pragmatic with my life, and I was like, acting is not really a stable career path. I want to be able to have a wife and kids one day, and I want to be able to support them. Don't know if I can do that with an acting career, but I come from family teachers and all that, and I'm like, I love kids, so why don't I go into teaching elementary school? And so that's what I got my degree in college. And it wasn't until like my about a year or so before I was going to graduate, my mom passed away from cancer, and that kind of changed my whole perspective on life. I kind of went down a little downward spiral for a while, and I was in the next year I was doing my internship in the schools, and I was doing story time with my children, my students, and I was doing all the voices for the characters, and they're all laughing and having fun, and I realized that that's what I needed to do. I was getting more fulfillment out of entertaining my students than actually teaching them, and like that's my calling in life. I'm supposed to be an entertainer. So I talked to my dad about it, and he actually agreed with me. He was like, "Yeah, go ahead, do this, but finish up your degree and then go do what you want to do." So that's what I did, and I took a year off, got my head back in the game, and finished up my degree. Then I saved up some money, moved up to New York City, and did a lot of jobs here or there for a while waiting tables, and gradually built my way up to being able to do Terrifier. It's just a lot of persistence. It's like 13 years of waiting tables and doing odd jobs all over the city. But that's how, it's perseverance. That's how it goes with this industry. Most people are not overnight successes. It takes, an overnight success usually takes 10 years.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear your story, because that's so crazy how you went from like doing a musical and then to teaching. Like that's the craziest. Honestly, that's the craziest thing to me, is like thinking of David Thornton as a teacher, and then side by side with a picture of the new picture from Terrifier 2 with Art standing in the doorway just covered in blood. Like that's an interesting like mental image.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be allowed in a school like that.
But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like you definitely do have a really, really interesting story, and I think it means even more when you hear the story into where you are today. And I guess we might as well get into it, because I mean, now that you brought it up, and it kind of at this point in the story you're telling, it comes up. So the next question is, you're most known for playing Art the Clown in Terrifier.
Right.
For those who don't know, though, and I feel like this is not something that's known by a ton of people unless you really are a big horror person. Art the Clown is actually not only featured in Terrifier, the character also appears in Damien Leone's The Ninth Circle, All Hallows Eve, and the 20-minute horror short film also called Terrifier that was created in 2011. However, David does not play Art in any of those films. So the question is, you kind of just brought up that how you got into Terrifier. The question is, how did you get the role in Damien's biggest film, the original Terrifier?
Well, it all basically started because the original art, Mike Gianelli, who was just fantastic. He set a great foundation for me. He really wasn't an actor. He was just one of Damien's friends. And Damien was like, hey, you want to do this movie for me? He's like, yeah, sure. Yeah. And he really didn't want to come back and do it. He wanted to do other things with his life, especially he didn't want to go through all the makeup again, which I can understand. And so they needed a new art, and they posted a notice online looking for a new art. And I had already seen All Hallows Eve, so I was already familiar with the character. And I pounced to the opportunity. I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect for me. They needed a tall, skinny guy with clowning or physical comedy experience to play him, and that was me. And I had never done film before. I'd always done stage and voiceover. And I wanted to get into the film industry, and I was like, well, this would be a great opportunity to do it. So, I mean, I can learn a lot on set, and this would be great for real. But, I was like, this is also an independent film, so who knows if anybody's going to see it. So who knows? But hey, it'll be fun anyways. It'll be a great experience. And I went in there, auditioned for it, and the rest was history. It just...
Yeah, well, actually, I guess because actually you're just talking about kind of stepping into the role, and this was the next question that I had, and it was, when you stepped into the role, how much influence did the previous portrayals, who you just mentioned, Mike Gianelli, have on your performance, and what specifically did you want to bring fresh to the character of Art that grew him into the massive success that he is now?
Yeah, Mike definitely had a big influence on me, because I wanted to still retain the core essence of the character that was already seen, because he had already built a little bit of a fan base already, and I don't want to just totally do something totally different than what fans had already seen. Oddly enough, basically what he did was what I was already going to do anyways. If I hit, I was just like, but what I wanted to bring more to it though was to bring more of my background in physical comedy and clowning to the role, because he is a clown, and I want to bring more of that aspect to the character, and that way it kind of sets him apart from all these other silent killers that you see in all these other movies. That's usually just a guy in a mask that cocks his head sideways or does something like that. They're all trying to mimic Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to bring a new physicality to him. Even though he's not talking, he's using his body and his face to convey intent and his emotions and all that. So you can tell even though he's not talking, you can tell what's going on in his head in a lot of ways, and that's what I wanted to bring to it. And I was lucky enough, because I understudied for 5 years Stephen Karl, who was Robbie Rotten from Lazy Town. He was our Grinch when I toured with the Grinch for 5 years, and he was a master at physical comedy and clowning, and he really fine-tuned my skills. So I took a lot of what Stephen taught me and put it into art. And it actually, if you go and look at some of his work as the Grinch, they have some YouTube videos of him with the Grinch, and you can probably see a little bit of art, a little bit of Grinch in art, I guess you could say. So he is a great influence, and that was also fresh in my mind at the time, because I had just gotten off the tour previous year. So after 5 years, that's kind of ingrained in me. So I was like, I was like, I can bring some fun physical comedy to a genre that usually doesn't have physical comedy.
Well, and I definitely do agree, because you're bringing up how Art is different than other silent killers, and you're totally right. And I just can't help but think, but that's part of the reason why Art became so big, is because you're totally right with the amount of killers that they do this with the head and the very simple movements, the stuff that, again, we saw Michael Myers do in 1978. So, like, every silent killer you see does that, and Art is so different. And I think that's part of the reason why, obviously, you are really, really good at playing Art, because you have that background. You can really take what you learned in the past and bring it to Art. And I think that is what makes Art just such a unique character. The things that he does, the way he expresses himself. the hand motions, everything he does, it just I know like the laughing that he does is something that I'm just thinking of right now. Like that, it's always so cool. And I do think that is something that everyone can really. I don't even really know what to say, but it's what makes him different than everybody else. And I don't think that you're ever gonna really see anything like Art because it works so well because he is a clown that he does things that a regular clown would do, but then at the same time makes them sinister. So yeah, I definitely do agree with that. Alrighty, so your Terrifier, and I want to specify that because the 2011 short is also called that. So the Terrifier featuring David is shown at the film festival on October 16 and is picked up by Dread Central Presents along with Epic Pictures for a short theatrical release in March of 2018. After this happens, the film quickly begins to gain attention from horror fans because of the intense gore and brutality the film openly shows you. I think we can all agree with that. Pretty brutal. What was your reaction to the movie gaining huge popularity and Art becoming an iconic horror character? Kind of, what was your reaction to that, and kind of what happened to you as the movie started to become just gigantic?
Oh yeah, I was still waiting tables at the time, so I mean, we didn't expect any of that. We were hoping that people would like it, but we didn't expect the kind of reaction it got. And it was a little bit slow at first because it's just the fans of All Hallows Eve that saw it first because we didn't release it. It wasn't immediately on Netflix, so it was just on like on demand and stuff like that, and like you could buy physical copies of it. So, and we weren't mentioned in like media that much, like mainstream media, like Vanity Fair and all those big Hollywood type of articles and stuff like that. So it was the fans that got the word out. They were all talking about it, and then the horror fan sites started picking up on it and started talking about it. So that kept it going and going and going. The Netflix grabbed us and put us out there, and that's when we really exploded because that just made us so much more accessible to everybody. And then you started having other celebrities tweeting about it, and so that really got us out to even more people. So it was just like, this is amazing. We were floored. Absolutely floored by this. I mean, I think the 2 years that we were on Netflix with the contract we had with them, we were in their top 10 horror films and top movies the whole entire time we were there, which was unheard of for a low budget independent film like us. We were competing with the best of the best out there, and that was absolutely mind blowing. Now we have T-shirts and people getting tattoos. We got Halloween costumes. We now have an action figure that was just released, and they're making some more. It's been nuts. All this merchandise has been coming out. Something I never imagined all my life would be happening. So I'm still letting it sink in. It's just I do a lot of conventions now, and that it changed my life. I'm like, here I was waiting tables. It was kind of weird. Like even before we released on Netflix, I was still waiting tables, and I would go to work and I'm getting treated like garbage from customers, just because they don't have enough ranch with their salad, and they, or they haven't gotten their free bread yet, even though we're, floored with people. And then I go home at night and then I'm answering fan mail. So it's just like, this is weird. But it eventually, once I started doing conventions, I was like, oh, wow, I don't really have to wait tables anymore. I'm making more money just going and signing autographs for a weekend than I do waiting tables for a few months. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this instead. I much prefer this than, the grief that I got, waiting tables on a daily basis. And I did that for 13 years. It's a hard job. It's a very stressful job. And I don't think, unless you've done it yourself, people don't really realize how strenuous it can be and how soul-sucking it can be at times too. But I always say, tip your waiters. They deserve it, Tip them well too. Don't tip them like 10%, I always tip like 20% at least. So it changed my life. Now I'm able to start doing more films and stuff like that. I've got another film I've been working on called Stream, not Scream, but Stream, like you stream things online. And it's with a lot of the Terrifier family. But we have a lot of big names in the horror world involved with this movie as well, like Dee Wallace, and Jeffrey Combs, and Danielle Harris, and Tony Todd, Melissa Rose, Dave Sheridan, all these people that are just amazingly talented actors I grew up watching. And now I get to share the screen with them,
Yeah.
which is amazing to me. And it's just being able to be on set with these people has just been awesome. Even if I'm not in the scene with them, I like to go off to the side and just watch them work so I can learn, because that's how I learn.
Yeah.
I don't learn in a classroom for acting. I learn from watching people that have been doing it longer and are better than I am. And then I take what they do and just put it in my little Rolodex up in my head of how to do things.
Yeah,
So
well,
it's
two of
great.
the things you just said, I kind of made me think of something. So the first thing you're talking about, the Terrifier merchandise, which obviously there is a ton of merchandise. And one thing that I've wanted, since I saw Terrifier, and you guys need to figure out a way to, if this can ever happen, but I collect life-size Halloween animatronics. You can see 2 of them right there. There's like 7 of them over behind the camera.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and they're all from the same company, Spirit Halloween, the pop-up Halloween store. I'm good friends with multiple let me restart that. I'm good friends with multiple people at the company. We need an art animatronic. Like,
I agree.
Like, I gotta
that.
talk to them and be like, you guys need to get in contact with Damien Leone. We need the license for Terrifier.
Yes.
We need an art, like a 6-foot art would be amazing.
Oh, that would be amazing. I would love it, because I'm like 6'2", so that would be perfect size.
Exactly. Like, it needs to be done. So I actually saw Terrifier on Netflix. That was the first time I saw it was on the Netflix platform. And just a little bit of backstory for the viewers, because I haven't shared this story really anywhere. I had heard about Terrifier a lot because obviously I see a lot of horror movies. I have a channel doing this. I had heard a lot about Terrifier, and it was like I want to check out this movie. Now, my parents let me watch a good amount of horror movies, but then they looked into Terrifier, and this was one of the only ones that they looked at the reviews, and they were like, "Whoa, this movie is pretty bad." So it was a lot. It was like months I had to wait. They watched it themselves first, and then finally, what it came down to was, I keep a list, or I should say I used to, because it's gotten honestly too much. I don't even keep it anymore, of every horror movie that I watch, and I was nearing my 100th horror movie. And I said, what are the odds that for my 100th horror movie you'll let me watch Terrifier because it's the 100th one? And they finally agreed to let me do it because it was my 100th one. The only rule with it was that we had to skip the hacksaw scene. That one was not gonna slide. So I was able to see the movie, and to this day, I know what the hacksaw scene is. However, I haven't seen it to this day. So, on my 18th birthday, the first thing I need to do is watch the hacksaw scene, watch Terrifier in its entirety. But yeah, it's just interesting because you bring up Netflix, and yeah, Netflix definitely did bring huge viewership to it. Like, again, just for myself, I saw it for the first time on Netflix. But yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that hacksaw scene. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like that's because I know there have been a lot of kids, not just like teenagers, but kids that have watched the film, and I'm always like, wow. I've known of 3-year-old girls that have watched the film, and I'm like, what? But it's everything. Everybody can handle things differently. Different ages. It's all about who. I let parents decide that. They should know what's good for their kids. If their kids can handle it, they can handle it. If not, it's okay. They can wait a few years or something like that. And so that's cool that your parents are like, hey, we'll let you watch it, but you just can't watch this scene, and that's fine. That's totally fine. I kind of commend them for it, because that's a pretty brutal scene, and technically I don't really think kids should be watching that either. So I'm just like, you give it a few years, man. And I'm going to tell you now, there are going to be scenes in part 2. They're going to say the same thing about you can't watch this until you're 18.
It's interesting because I'm just thinking about it. The only other movie that comes to mind that I was denied of was House of 1,000 Corpses. Is the only other movie. I've gotten to see everything that I've wanted to. Like, Halloween has always been my favorite franchise. I'm looking over, I have a collection of masks over there. No problem with those. They don't really they're pretty tame, the Halloween movies. You're not going to see nothing too bad. I'm trying to think of other things that I like. Obviously, Child's Play is super tame for the most part. Stuff like that. Those are easy. Obviously, I can't think of every horror movie I just saw ever seen. But the only things that I know are House of 1,000 Corpses I was denied of. That one I'm definitely not going to be able to pull off. And Terrifier I was denied of, except for the one scene. And after that happened, actually, they let me get the Steelbook edition, which I have up there. Awesome. What, actually? I feel like, in honor of this video, I feel like I should get the Steelbook, I feel like I have to have it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I know. So after I saw it once, it was kind of cleared where I'm allowed to watch it really whenever I want at this point. But Again, still the hacksaw scene is not allowed, but at 18 it's definitely going to be viewable. So, um, so this next question kind of ties into what it's like working with Damien Leone, obviously the director of Terrifier, Terrifier 2, a lot of other stuff. So the question is, I just recently, this was last weekend I think, I watched Frankenstein versus the Mummy, which is another one of Damien Leone's films. Whenever you see something from Damien, and this is any of his films, the credits come up and it's like makeup by Damien Leone, written by Damien Leone, directed by Damien Leone. It's absolutely insane. It's so respectable. What is it like working with a director who's basically involved in every piece of the film process? There's not a lot of other directors who are basically dabble in every single piece of the film.
Yeah.
What is it like working with someone like that?
It's pretty cool. I mean, like Damien is, people think of the content he puts out that he's got to be an insane person. He's probably sick and depraved type of guy. I'm like, oh my God, he's the most chilled, laid back guy. And he's such a fun guy to talk to. He's like, he has such like an encyclopedic knowledge of movies. He loves movies, especially horror movies. It's like, it's great. And I love working with him. It's like, we've become like brothers basically. And it's, he's also the type of director, he's very actor friendly. And he knows how to get things out of actors, but he's also very open to other ideas. Not just from the actors, but if other people on the crew even have an idea about something. They come up with an idea for a scene. We're like, if he likes it, he's like, hey, let's give that a try and see how it works. And so we've done that several times on both films where, well, one of us will come up with another idea and we're like, hey, let's just film it and see how it works. And if we use it, we use it. If we don't, we don't. But at least we have options. And that's always a good thing. So he's not one of those people, even though he's directing it, writing and all that kind of stuff. He's not one of those people that's just like, this is my idea only. And this is because I've worked with people like that before. And that's really annoying where they're not open to hearing other ideas, because sometimes other people come up with things you wouldn't even think of. And it's stuff like this should be a collaborative, effort, because that way, you get the best of the best. And I love that aspect of it all. And Damien is just like, he's a force to be reckoned with. He, like you said, he writes it, directs it, does all the practical effects himself. He does all the editing. He's just a powerhouse. He knows what he wants. He has a certain vision. He knows exactly what he wants. And sometimes his vision doesn't make sense to me at the moment. And I've learned to trust it. I'm just like, this doesn't make sense right now, but I know you have a point behind this. He's very meticulous with things. He knows how he wants to set up a shot, and he knows how he wants it to look. And so I've just learned, I'm like, yeah, I just got to trust in him. And I do. It's like, that's what's been taking a while for us to get part 2 out, is because the editing is such a huge movie. Part 2, it's over 2 hours long, and he's very meticulous about it, and he wants this to be the best it can be. So he's taking his time with it and making sure that everything's hitting the way it needs to hit, everything looks the way it needs to look, everything sounds the way it needs to sound, and it's going to be worth it. I appreciate everybody's patience with it. He just doesn't want to rush out a subpar product, especially when it's been the fans that have almost fully funded this film. The majority of our funding has come from the fans from our Indiegogo campaign. So we want to give everybody, their money's worth. And because I don't know how many times I've seen so many of these horror films that have come out, and both big budget films and just independent films, where they just seem so rushed and so just half-assed. And that's something Damien didn't want to do with this. And it's his baby, and he deeply, deeply cares about it. He's not doing this just for a paycheck. He does it because he loves the genre, and he wants to bring back those type of movies. Because that's we talk about that all the time, where we feel like horror movies, especially slashers, have not really been that good in the past 2 decades. They've just gotten so tame, and they don't try to experiment anymore. And we're like, well, let's bring some new life into the genre.
Yeah, well, since you brought up the word tame just now with the movie. Obviously, Terrifier is, like we mentioned multiple times, is very much known for the gore, and also now that you just brought up Terrifier 2, I have to ask, and obviously I understand you can't really say anything about the film, but
Hmm.
How would you compare the gore and the kills in Terrifier 2 to the original? Can fans expect to see some nastier things than what we saw in the first one? And kind of what do you want people to expect on the gore side of the movie?
Oh yeah, yeah. Definitely more gore. Damien upped his game with the gore in this thing. That was something we took as a personal challenge because we're like, did we set the bar too high for us with the hacksaw scene in the first film? We're like, well, let's challenge ourselves, see if we can top that. And we start the film off with a big, huge, gory kill. It's just boom, we hit you right there with it. It's like you know what you're in for the rest of the film based on that. I think we would probably get a hard R rating just on that first kill alone. It's whew, it's pretty. But there's a kill that happens about halfway through the movie that I think is going to top the hacksaw scene, just in the meanness of it. It is a mean kill. There is nothing funny about this kill. It's just brutal, and it keeps going for minutes, like 5-6 minutes. It's not like you see so many slashers where it's like a very quick kill. Just, the guy comes out of nowhere and just stabs them, and boom, moves on to the next thing. Oh no, see that's what I love about Art. He likes to play with his food, as I say, and that's what he does with these kills in this movie. He just keeps going with it. He goes over the top of this. It's like performance art in a way for him, pun intended. But it's just like, that's what I love about it. And so we went crazy with these kills, and we know we're probably going to get people, if we show it in theaters, we're going to probably get people walking out at that point because they can't handle it. And we're hoping that happens in some ways, because that means that we hit a line with some people. We've had and we've shown this kill to some people, and like one of my friends who does a lot of the interviews at conventions. She's a huge horror fan. She does podcasts as well and stuff like that, so she knows her stuff. We showed her a rough edit of this kill, and she started crying. Just tears of joy. She was like, oh my god, this is amazing, thank you. So we're very excited about that. But I mean, the whole movie's like this, though. The whole movie is taking Terrifier, and we took the good and the bad critiques and took them to heart, and we improved on everything. I think it's just the plot's a lot better, character development's a lot better in this, the kills are more crazy and over the top, and Art is in it as much as the first one is. Just like, but we've also focused on our new female lead in this. We really want to develop that character more now, because this is a character that Damien has had in his mind even before he had Art in his mind, years and years ago. And she's such an awesome badass character, very Ellen Ripley type of character. And so it's as much her movie it is Art's, and that's what I think is kind of cool. She's like the Batman to his Joker that way. So we're really getting her story in this one, and so when they finally clash, it's epic.
Well, just talking about Terrifier 2. Well, first of all, Terrifier fans, I guess that's what you can expect. An even gorier movie than the first one. That's going to be. It sounds like it's going to be interesting to watch, and if you'll make it through it the first time, that'll be interesting. But this next question is my final main question, and then I have a bloody bonus, as I do for all my guests, and it's going to be interesting. But the final question is, and you've touched on it again multiple times, Terrifier 2, but I kind of wanted to end the interview like this because it keeps it in people's minds. So the last question is, and again, you've kind of touched on this multiple times already, but if there's anything else you want to add, what do you want people to expect from the release of Terrifier 2? Based on what you've been saying this entire interview about the gore, the plot, you just mentioned the characters, everything you've said, what do you think about the sequel in your own opinion, and what do you want the fans to expect from this release of Terrifier 2?
I am so proud of the sequel. I love it. It is such a fun film, and that's gone from the first day I read the script. I was so giddy about making this. I was like, oh, this is Damien outdid himself. I am so excited for everybody to see this film. There's so many things I can't talk about yet, and that's what drives me crazy. There's so many things I want to talk about, because it's going to it's gonna get people talking. I think there's going to be more questions raised about his art and his background as well in this, and we don't want to treat our audience like they're stupid, so we're not very heavy-handed about his background and stuff like that. But we drop little clues here and there, and if people know how to look, they'll find them. And because we like to retain that mystery, so you just expect more of what you love about art amplified.
Obviously,
Cool.
I have a bloody bonus question for all my guests on channel 1031, and that is no different for this episode. But for all the viewers, I have a new way of introducing the bloody bonus. If you're a longtime fan of channel 1031 and you've never have seen this before. So we're kicking off with David Howard Thornton. This is how you're going to see bloody bonus for every single guest now. I have 2 envelopes, and you don't need to know where the blood came from, so don't ask about the blood. All you need to know is that there's 2 envelopes here. So obviously, the bloody bonus is going to be different, so you have to pick. You're either going to pick the A or you're going to pick the B.
I got to go with A for art.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Hold on. Camera's reversed.
So I could have gone B for blood, but I think A for art.
All right, we're going to go with the A. Alrighty, this is a good one. This is a good one. If Art was to say a single word, because obviously Art doesn't speak, if he was to say a single word, what word would it be and why? We're putting you on the spot. The bloody bonuses put you on the spot.
I think the F word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that would just because that has so many great uses and it's such an expressive word. It's one of my favorite words actually. And so it matches so many situations he could be in, and it just like that when he finally does it, he just like
yeah, that's I didn't know what to expect, honestly. I didn't know when I read that question, I didn't really know what you were going to say. So that's definitely a good answer. For
that's
the viewers,
fun question.
Yeah, for the viewers, put down in the comments, what do you think Art would say? I think there's so many interpretations of what Art would say if he was to say one word. So anyone watching the video, write down a comment down below. What word do you think Art would say if he was to speak in Terrifier 2? I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen, but if it was to happen, what do you think he would say? Well, all right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to wrap up this episode, episode 2 of season 2 of Channel 1031. Obviously, I want to thank David Howard Thornton for coming on. Are there any final words you want to say to our viewers?
Just big thank you. Thank you for your support over all these years, and thank you for your patience with us for getting Terrifier 2 out, because, this pandemic slowed everything down, so I just can't wait to get this bad boy out to you guys. It's going to be well worth it, and I thank you for getting us where we are.
Well, I know people are, the anticipation is high. People can't wait. I can't wait. It's going to be an awesome movie. I already know. As for the viewers, you can see David back in the shoes of Art the Clown, probably causing tons of more mayhem in Damien Leone's upcoming Terrifier 2. Also, you can check out all David's social media in the description down below. Check out all the stuff he's working on now and the stuff he's going to be working on in the future. Go follow him. All the social media will be down there. And I guess, remember as always, for everything scary, I'm GMHaunts. I'll see you guys later for more Channel 1031 episodes. Goodbye.